Namaskar. Welcome to Hamska Academy. Today we are going to discuss grade 10 topic, the interwar economy. This is a third subtopic in making of the global world. Third subtopic, the interwar economy. During the war years, how was the economy? That is the point what we are going to discuss. The First World War, 1914 to 1918, was fought mainly in Europe. Its impact was felt all around the world. Though it was fought mainly in Europe, the impact was felt all around the world. Notably, for our concerns in this chapter, we are going to discuss the first half of the 20th century into a crisis that took over 3 decades, means more than 30 years to overcome. During this period, the world experienced widespread economic and political instability and another catastrophic war. So during the World War I, what are the problems? How did the world enter into crisis? After that, how the political instability was there and how another war happened and how did the world recover from that. So those are the points which we are going to concentrate in this video. The wartime 3.1, wartime transformations. First World War, as we all know, was fought between two groups or two blocks, the Allied powers and the Axis powers. The Allied powers are Britain, France, Russia, and later joined by US. On the opposite side, we have the Axis powers or the Central powers, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and the Ottoman Turkey. These are the two blocks who fought the World War I. When the war began in 1914, many governments during that time thought it would be ended by Christmas. It would end by Christmas, means hardly 6 to 8 months. But it lasted for 4 years. So the powers which fought the World War I are Allies versus the Central powers. In the Allies group, we have Britain, France, Russia, and later joined by US, while on the Central power side, we have Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Ottoman Turkey. Initially, they thought the war would end in 6 to 8 months, the coming Christmas. But it lasted for more than 4 years. The First World War was a war like no other war before, because the fighting involved the world's leading industrial nations, which now harness the vast power of modern industry to inflict the great possible destruction on their enemies. So all the participants of the World War I are involved in industrialization. So they had huge industries and they produced large amounts. For example, if you see the First World War industry, what we can see is the machine guns were there, tankers were there, aircrafts, chemical weapons, all were produced in massive scale, which is an example of large scale industries were existing during that period of time. To fight the war, they had millions of soldiers. They recruited millions of soldiers from around the world and moved to the frontiers of the large ships, the front lines and trains. They have large frontline ships and trains. The scale of death, if you look at the scale of death and destruction, there are 9 million dead and 20 million injured, which was unthinkable according to the statistics of that period. So industrialization has increased the production. They are able to produce anything on large scale to an extent where They have many colonies, so they were able to recruit many soldiers also, and they went on to the front lines of the battles. Most of the killed main were men of working age. Main people who were killed were the men of working age. The deaths and the injuries reduced the able-bodied workforce in Europe, because many people died and many got injured. Most of them are from the working age, that is from 15 to 59. So the people who are able to work got injured, so it affected the workforce in Europe. With fewer members within the family, household incomes also got declined. The situation after the war. So during the war, the industries were restructured to produce war-related goods. Now, why we are saying industrialization has increased or made it a massive scale war? Because during the war time, the industries were restructured in such a way that they produce war-related goods. They produce war-related goods. Entire societies were also reorganized for supplying of war, as men were sent to battle. Women stepped out to undertake the jobs for that earlier period. Well, before that, before the wars, only men used to do works. But now, due to war, men are going to fight the wars. So women also stepped out of their homes and they started to undertake certain odd jobs and feed the families. So these are few changes which have come after the war. The war led to the snapping of economic links between some of the world's largest economic powers, which were now fighting each other to pay for them. Britain borrowed large sums of money from the US banks as well as the US public. Thus, the war transformed US from being an international debtor to an international creditor. So due to this war, Britain started to borrow large amounts of money from US banks and also from US public citizens. So because of this act, US became to be as an international creditor from debitor. Earlier it used to take money, now it is giving credit to other countries. In other words, at the war's end, by the time war ended, the US and its citizens owned more overseas assets than foreign governments and citizens owned in the US. So US and its citizens started to make a lot of money and started to acquire many foreign assets when compared to even foreign governments which are ruling on the other side. But US emerged as an international creditor after the World War I. Post-war recovery. After the war, how did the world recover? Post-war economic recovery proved to be very, very difficult. Britain, which was the world's leading economy before the war, in particular, faced a prolonged crisis due to the war. Before the war, Britain was extensively rich. They had colonies in more than 50 countries. But even that country faced prolonged crisis for a very long period of time. While Britain was preoccupied with the war, the industries developed in India and Japan. To an extent, Britain also used these particular industries to supply war equipment during the time of war. So, certain industries developed in India and also in Japan. After the war, Britain could not recapture its own position or dominance in the Indian market or in the Japanese market to compete with them. So, especially in India, they could not recapture their own position because the local goods, local industries started to fled their products into the market. Similarly, internationally, the domination of Japan also, they could not compete with Japan in the international market. Moreover, to finance the war expenditures, the Britain had borrowed liberally from the US. Now, in order to compensate or in order to take care of the war expenditure, as I told you in the previous part of the video, that the Britain has to get certain amount of loans from US, from US public, US government. So this meant that at the end of the war, Britain was burdened with huge external debts. So no more Britain is a world's leading economy after the war. Before the war, that was the situation. But during this war period and after the war, certain industries in India and Japan developed so much that Britain could not recapture its own position either in the Indian market or in the Japanese market or Japan's competition in the international market. As Britain has borrowed liberally from US, it became having huge external debts, and that became a burden for the Britain after the war. The war led to an economic boom, that is, to a large increase in demand, production, and employment. When the war boom ended, due to war, they need certain particular equipment that has to be done for the war. So they asked all the companies, industries to produce them. But after the war ended, the production contracted and unemployment increased. So the production became less because there is nobody to buy. There is no demand for the products now. As the war was ended, suddenly the production has to be cut down and unemployment increased. At the same time, government reduced blotted war expenditures to bring them into line with peacetime revenues. Now all the governments started to reduce their expenditure towards war equipments. They want to bring this money for peace. Now these developments also created huge job losses in 1921. 1 in every 5 British workers was thrown out of work. 1 in every 5 British workers was thrown out. Indeed, anxiety and uncertainty about work became an enduring part of the post-war scenario. So because of the efforts during the wartime, certain industries got extraordinary boom and they have increased their demand, production and employment. But as the war has ended, the production became less, unemployment increased. And at the same time, the government has also taken steps to make sure that they don't spend more money on the war equipment. So because of this, so many people lost their jobs. For example, in 1921, 1 of every 5 members of the British workers was out of work, and that has added anxiety and uncertainty about work became an enduring part as a regular process after the post-war scenario. It did not stop here. Many agricultural economies also were in crisis. Considering the case of wheat producers, before the war, Eastern Europe was a major supplier of wheat in the world. When this supply was disrupted during the war, the wheat production in Canada, America, and Australia expanded dramatically. Due to the war, they need this wheat supply and they have to supply it. So they started to supply. But once the war was over, the production in the Eastern Europe revived and created glut in the wheat output. So the production is more. Grain prices fell down. So slowly the grains cost fell down. So the income for the rural families became less. Farmers earlier they were in profits. Now as the incomes fell down, they also went into deeper debts. So in agriculture also, the agriculture sector also, there was a decline in the economy, not only in the industrial sector, even in the agricultural sector, we can see a great decline, downfall with reference to wheat producers in Canada, America, and Australia. Rise of mass production and consumption. In the US, the recovery was quicker when compared to the other countries. That helped the boosting of US economy. So we have to notice here, after a very short period of economic trouble in the years after the war, the US economy resumed to its strong growth in the early 1920s. So we are discussing about post World War. How did the recovery happen, and how did US was able to recover very soon, and which helped them to boost their US economy. Let us get into the details. One of the most important feature of the US economy of the 1920s was mass production. The mass production has made it to produce more large amount. The move towards mass production has begun in 19th century, the late 19th century, but in 1920s it became a characteristic feature, the main feature of industrial production in the US. So what is the main feature that made them to get more work? That is the mass production. In 1920s, that was a key feature for the industrial production in United States. A well-known pioneer of mass production was car manufacturer Henry Ford. Who? Car manufacturer Henry Ford. He adapted the assembly line of Chicago slaughterhouse. In Chicago, there is a slaughterhouse where the animals were kept apart by the butchers. As they come down on a conveyor belt, they get the work done. So the same line method, assembly line method, Henry Ford has adopted to his new car plant in Detroit. So he realized that the assembly line method will allow you to do the work faster and cheaper way of producing more vehicles. Now, what is this assembly line method? The assembly line forced the workers to repeat a single task mechanically and continuously, such as fitting of a particular part of a car at a pace dictated by the conveyor belt. This is a way of increasing the output per worker and speeding up the pace of work. How does this happen? Assembly line means we all know, in line we follow certain things. As the people are doing the work is completely divided for everybody, and as the conveyor belt gets the particular part or a car for you, you first give the outfit. So in the outfit, someone will fix, after reaching to some point, they fix the glasses, then the tires, something like that. The work will be given to them and they have to do the same work. So you become master of the work. Same work, the conveyor belt will get you the work. So standing in front of a conveyor belt, no worker could afford to delay the motions, because if you miss that, it will take you off. They can take a break or even have a friendly word with a workmate. As a result, Henry Ford's cars came off the assembly line at 3-minute intervals and speed and much faster than the achieved by previous methods. The T model Ford was the world's first mass-produced cars. The T model Ford car was the first mass-produced car. Through the assembly line method, they were able to do that one very quickly and very fastly. At first, the workers at the Ford factory were unable to cope with the stress of working in the assembly lines, because that is a new thing for them. And we all know our brain has this change hours system. when we try to change something or try to adapt to new things, we feel it rigidly, we find it difficult to do certain things and could not control the pace of work. So they quit in large numbers. This desperation of the people, Ford doubled their daily wages to $5 in 1914. At the same time, they banned trade unions from operating in his plants. So, in order to reduce or stop the people leaving from job, one, they have offered them doubling the daily wage into $5 in January 1914, and they also banned the trade unions operating in the plants. So, because of these two activities, the production started to increase. Now, Henry Ford recovered the high wage by repeatedly speeding up the production line and forcing workers to work even harder. So much so, he would soon describe his decision to double the daily wage as the best cost cutting decision he had ever made. Generally, when we discuss about cost cutting, we think the salaries would be reduced. But here, Henry Ford is saying that due to increase in the salaries, that has motivated the workers to do more work, that the production has become almost double. So now he came up to a point and he's saying that the best cost cutting decision is to increase the salaries per day, wages per day. So Fordist industrial practices soon spread in the entire US. They were also widely copied in Europe as well in 1920s. Now the mass production lowered the cost and the prices of the engineered goods because you are producing in large quantities. Now, thanks to the higher wages, more workers could now afford to purchase durable consumer goods such as cars. Now, as the salaries were increased, the wages were increased, now the workers were also able to buy cars. Now, car production in US rose from 2 million in 1919 to more than 5 million in 1929. So that made the car production so fast. Similarly, there was a spurt in the purchase of refrigerators, washing machines, radios, gramophone players, and all the system of hire purchase. So hire purchase in the sense on credit basis, they can pay it back in the weekly or monthly installments. Because of this, the sales also has increased. The demand for the refrigerators, washing machines was also fueled by the boom in the house construction and home ownership. They are financed one again by a loan. So the housing, the consumers all were boomed basis of the prosperity in the US. Large investments, housing and household goods seem to create a cycle of higher employments and income. So that raise the consumption demand. So more investments, the more employment, the more income started to flow in the US economy. So by 1923, US resumed the exporting capital to the rest of the world and became the largest overseas lender of money. So US imports and capital exports also boosted up. The European recovery and the world trade and income growth over the next 6 years continued. So from 1923 to 1929, they were continuously growing their income. All this, however, proved too good to last. They could not last for a long time. After 6 years, there was a huge break. By 1929, the world was plunged into depression such as it had never experienced before. The Great Economic Depression came into existence or happened during that time in the year 1929. The Great Economic Depression. The Great Economic Depression began around in 1929. and that lasted till the mid 1930s. During this period, most parts of the world experienced catastrophic declines in production, in employment, in income, and trade. So, during 1929 to mid 1935, there was a complete downfall in the income, employment opportunities, production of the industries, everything fell down. The exact timing and the impact of the depression varied from countries to countries. But in general, agricultural regions and communities were the worst hit or affected. This was because the fall of the agricultural prices was much greater and more prolonged than in the prices of industrial goods. So you can say very clearly the impact of great economic depression continued for a long time, and it affected almost all the industries. The worst affected was agriculture. The depression was caused by a combination of several factors. It's not one reason why they have got this economic depression. The post-World War economy was very fragile. First thing, the agricultural overproduction remained as a problem, because during the war time, they have asked them to supply large volumes of food, wheat, like that. But the same production continued. So this made worse by falling agricultural prices. As the prices slumped and agricultural incomes declined, farmers tried to expand the production to bring a larger volume of produce to the market to maintain their overall income, because in order to maintain their income, they need to produce more and more. Then only they will be able to get the income what they are getting before. Because of that, the situation has become more worst in the market, pushing more down the prices even further. So the farm produce rotted for a lack of buyers. There were no buyers to buy. The production went on increasing because the farmers want to get the income what they were getting earlier. So they added more lands, larger volume of production. But unfortunately, there was no one to buy after the war. This is the first reason. Moving to the second one, in mid 1920s, many countries financed their investments through loans which were taken from US, which is often extremely easy to raise a loan in the US when the going was good. When you are having good time, you get good loans. Even the overseas lenders panicked the first sign of trouble, and in fact, first half of 1928, US overseas loans amounted for over $1 billion. $1 billion, which is nearly 100 crores. So a year later, it was 1/4 of the amount, and countries that depend crucially on US now started to face acute crisis, because earlier US used to finance these people liberally, free-handed. As we can see, the loan amounted for nearly $1 billion, but slowly they started to cut down that, and the withdrawal of the loans affected much of the world. Though it is a different way, in Europe it led to the failure of some major banks, and they started to collapse. The value of the British pound sterlings also started to come down. Now, not only in Britain, even in Latin America, they intensified the agriculture and the raw material prices to come down. Now, the US tried to attempt to protect the economy in the depression by doubling its import duties also. Now, that also added and dealing it a severe blow to the world trade. Because when you double the import duties, indirectly you are trying to cut off them, because they have to pay double for you. Automatically, that affected the world trade. So the US was also the industrial country that most severely affected by the depression. So with the fall in the prices, now the prospect of depression, US bank has slashed domestic lendings and called back all the loans. In order to save themselves, the US people started to stop the lendings and called back all the loans. So farmers could not sell their harvest. Households were ruined. Business collapsed. Faced with falling incomes, many households in the US could not repay what they had borrowed, because we discovered in the previous videos that they were given credits, they were given loans to buy the household. They were large investments. They were forced to give up their homes, cars, and other consumable durables what they had during that time. The consumerist prosperity of 1920s now disappeared into a puff of dust. Now there is no consumerist prosperity. The unemployment soared to a heights. People trucked long distances looking for any work they could find. Ultimately, now the US banking system itself collapsed completely. Not able to recover the investments, not able to collect the loans, not able to force the people to pay it back, and banks went into bankrupt and were forced to close it down. The banks had closed between 1929 and 1932, and about 1,10,000 companies have collapsed. Nearly 4,000 banks and 1,10,000 companies had collapsed completely due to this great economic depression. So now you can imagine, during that time, 4,000 banks and 1,10,000 companies have collapsed. Means you can imagine how terrifying the effect was on the US economy. By 1935, a modest economic recovery was under its way in most industrial countries. But the great economic depression's wider effects on the society, politics, and international relations and on the people's mind proved more enduring. It went on traveling with them. That was a great impact on the world, especially on US. India and the Great Economic Depression. If you look at the impact of depression on India, we can see how integrated the global economy had become by the early 20th century. The tremors of the crisis in one part of the world were quickly relayed to other parts. It affected the lives, economies, and the societies worldwide. So it was impact on Indian society as well. In the 19th century, the colonial India had become an exporter of agricultural goods and importer of manufacturers. It started to export agricultural goods and start to import the manufactured goods. Due to the depression, immediately India's trade got affected. India's exports and imports both became half. Both have become half, and between 1928 to 1934, they have been slashed down. As international prices fell down, prices in India also fell down, got plunged. Between 1928 and 1934, the cost of the wheat alone fell by 50%. The cost of wheat alone fell by 50%. You can imagine. So the peasants and the farmers suffered a lot due to this crisis. The urban dwellers, when compared to the urban people, the most affected were the farmers and peasants in the villages. Though the agricultural prices fell sharply, the colonial government, it means the British government, which was ruling India during that time, refused to reduce the revenue demands, means the taxes. The peasants were producing for world market, were the worst hit, because as we know, globally, all the countries started to see the effect of economic depression, the Great Economic Depression. Considering the jute producers of Bengal, they grew raw jute that was processed in the factories and exported to form a gunny bag. But as gunny's export collapsed, the price of the raw jute crashed completely, more than 60%. More than 60%, the cost has come down. Now the peasants who borrowed in the hope of better times, now they are not able to return it back. As the cost has fell down, they became into deeper debts. They fell into the deeper depth. Earlier, with good hope, they have taken loans, but now they were not able to repay it back as the income for the jute has crashed for nearly 60%. Now they became deep debt. Thus, the Bengal jute growers lament. There is a small article here. Let's see. Grow more jute, brothers, with the hope of greater cash. Cost and debts of jute will make your hopes get dashed. When you have spent all your money and got the crop off the ground, traders sitting at the home will pay you ₹5 a pound. So that was the situation, that was the scenario during that time. So you can understand by that, with hard work, sweat and toil, you have made the crop to grow, but you are getting paid very little because the prices were crashed, and that made you people to go into deeper debt. Across India, peasants' indebtedness increased. They used their savings, mortgaged lands, and sold whatever jewelry they had, precious metals they had, in order to survive, in order to live. They are not able to meet the requirement. So in the years of depression, India became an exporter of precious metals, notably gold. So India was having only valuable thing, that is gold. The famous economist John Maynard Keynes thought that India's gold exports promoted global economic recovery very fast, because they certainly helped speed up the British recovery, but they did very little efforts for the Indian peasants, especially in the rural India. So it helped the Britishers to recover very fast. Now coming to rural India, seeing at the unrest, Mahatma Gandhi launched the civil disobedience movement at the heights of economic depression. So now the depression proved less grim for the urban India, because falling of prices, those with fixed incomes, say towns dwelling land owners who received rents, middle class salaried employees, now found themselves better off. Everything costless. Industrial investments also grew as the government extended the tariff protection to industries and under the pressure of nationalist opinion. So the effect on India was very huge, but it is more when compared to the urban areas in the rural area, because these urban area people are having lands, they have middle class salaried people who are making some amount of money getting flow into the system. They are able to balance that, and the Britishers could also get some industrial investments, giving some kind of protection, tariff protection to the industries. That was the impact of Great Economic Depression on